Today's session is titled Adventures in AI, Creating Social Content Using AI, and will be recorded for training and educational purposes. Before we get started, let's note that in order to keep it flowing and stay within our 1 hour goal, I think everybody's muted, but we do want to hear from you. So post your questions in the Q&A section. I'll help Jess with that and kind of moderate as we go through that. And we can, of course, address questions at the end of the presentation. So let's welcome Jess. Okay, you're going to help me with this, Jess?
Broadus.
Broadus. See, I always try to make it more difficult. Jess Broadus is the senior writer at Letterpress Communications. Jess began her journey with Letterpress in 2020 as a creative contractor, serving as account executive and writing specialist before stepping into her current position in 2023. As senior writer, Jess crafts a wide range of creative content for Letterpress clients and supports the team with SEO keyword research, content optimization, and AI-assisted content generation. She holds a BA in English from Davidson College and an MFA in creative writing from Virginia Tech. Let's welcome Jess, and thank you for spending time with us today.
Thank you so much, Billy. Did you want to project the slides or did you want me to share my screen?
I can go ahead and do that for you. Sure, no problem.
Okay, great.
All set.
Thank you so much. So today's session is all about using AI to create social content. And that's something that I've kind of been working with Letterpress on over the past several years. We've been testing out ChatGPT as the different versions have evolved and kind of looking at how we can best leverage it while still kind of maintaining that storytelling, that authentic storytelling and human touch that we are known for. So let Billy pull that up. And the first photo there on the cover page is actually a post that was created entirely using ChatGPT. So the image was created using ChatGPT, the copy was created using ChatGPT. So in this presentation, we'll kind of go through the best practices for using ChatGPT to generate social content, and then also a step-by-step guide for creating a GPT for your brand. So next slide, please. Thank you. So first of all, I was hoping we could just kind of go through the chat and do some introductions. So on the next slide, you'll see the questions I have, just kind of basically who are you, what do you do, and how often do you use ChatGPT? Next slide, please. And then the final question is, what's your biggest hurdle when it comes to social content creation? Because we all have, with different businesses and organizations, there are different challenges to creating social content that will work for you and generate engagement. So if you guys could drop your answers in the chat, that would be super helpful for me, just as we're going through to kind of know how familiar you are with ChatGPT, and then also what your challenges are with using ChatGPT or using generative social content, creating social content. And as you're writing, I'll just kind of share a little bit about my background with ChatGPT. I started using it right when it came out for Letterpress, kind of looking into how it could work for us. So I've been using it nearly every day since it came out. And my biggest hurdle when it comes to social content creation is really, we work with a lot of different clients and organizations. So keeping all the brand voices straight when I'm writing content is a challenge for me. So if we have 15 different clients we're helping write social media, then I have 15 different brand voices that I have to kind of know and generate content for. And ChatGPT has been very helpful with that. So I'll give you guys just another second to kind of drop your answers in the chat. Not using AI is your biggest hurdle. I think that is true for a lot of people. Just kind of getting over the hump of getting familiar with AI and what it can do and how it can be helpful. Awesome, we have some daily users. making it sound genuine yet engaging. I think that's a really great point. Sometimes when you're using ChatGPT, the responses can be pretty generic, pretty flat. So you want to be able to craft a prompt that will give you better content. Basically, we'll definitely talk about that. Oh yeah, Tiffany. So the best prompts to use for the best responses, that's definitely a challenge. And that's something that I've had to kind of learn over time. When I first started using ChatGPT, I was not getting good content. And I thought it was ChatGPT, and then I realized it was the prompts. So there's a lot you can do to kind of improve the output for ChatGPT. Awesome. Thank you guys. That's super helpful for me. Let's go ahead to the next slide, Billy. Thank you. Okay, so today we're going to cover the role of AI, how to use AI for social media, creating a custom GPT, and then also best practices for using AI. And those best practices are definitely still emerging. So we're kind of, we're on the forefront of this generative AI kind of journey. So we're kind of figuring it out as we go. So feel free to drop any questions in the chat as we go through this stuff. But we'll go ahead and start with the next slide is about the role of AI. And really, AI is revolutionizing the way we do content marketing. A lot of marketing firms have jumped on AI, and I think it's a really good thing because the more people that use it, the more content changes and the more content we get out in the world. So let's go to the next slide. This next slide may be a review for many of you, but I think it's just helpful to get a definition, a common definition before we start. So AI refers to artificial intelligence or computer systems or programs that can perform tasks that are usually performed by humans. So that could be learning, problem solving, or what we're talking about today, which is language understanding and language models. Next slide, please. Okay, well, I really don't use AI. It's just not something I'm interested in. It's not something that I want to use. And I think it's important to kind of think about how much AI is just involved in our day-to-day life. You really can't avoid artificial intelligence at this point. So here's some examples of AI in everyday life. So if you ever talk to Siri or Alexa, you're using AI. If you are typing an email and it pops up some predictive text, so it says it guesses your next couple words, that's AI. Anyone who has gone to a customer service website and chatted with a chatbot is using AI. And then also just on social media, if you're on LinkedIn, they are using AI to generate personalized feeds for you. So thinking about what you're spending time on, what you click on, they're using AI to kind of decide what you like, what you want to read, what you would spend time on. Next slide, please. And today we're talking about ChatGPT specifically. So everything in this presentation is geared toward ChatGPT. It is one of the most popular content creation tools right now for social media. But there are others, and I think it's helpful to be aware of the names of the other ones. So there's Claude, Gemini, and Jasper. Those are kind of the biggest ones right now that you can experiment with for social content creation. Next slide. And the reason I think that ChatGPT has become so popular with social content is just that it kind of took off from the beginning. So in just 5 days of launching, ChatGPT had 1 million users, which is one of the fastest growing kind of models we've seen. And you can see from this chart that it has been surpassed now by Threads, which took even less time to reach 1 million users. But overall, it has just kind of taken off in a way that we hadn't really seen before it came out. And currently, OpenAI is saying that they host 200 million users in just a week. So that's across the world. They're just hosting millions of users every single week. Next slide. So as we think about content marketing specifically, there are a couple of ways we can talk about how ChatGPT has really changed the game. So it's not just efficiency or creativity, but it's also consistency. So on the next slide, we'll talk about efficiency. So basically, and this is kind of, I think, it's kind of apparent when you start using it. It definitely reduces the time you spend on brainstorming and writing. So it's very, very quick. So in the time, if you ask ChatGPT to generate 5 ideas for social campaigns, it will do that in about 20 or 30 seconds. Whereas for a person to generate 5 ideas would take longer. So it definitely cuts down on the time that you're spending on that brainstorming step. Same thing for writing. If you ask ChatGPT to generate 5 possible social posts for Thanksgiving, it can do that in about 20 seconds. So it's a very quick and efficient kind of partner to use when you're creating content. It also makes it really easy to plan ahead. You can kind of draft out an entire month's worth of social content in much less time than it would take a person to draft a month's worth of social content. You can easily adjust your copy to target multiple audiences. So you can kind of tell ChatGPT, I want to write a Thanksgiving post that's geared towards donors, and I want to write a Thanksgiving post that's geared towards a generic audience. So you can really get it to adjust the copy to reach your target audience very quickly. And then the final kind of benefit or efficiency piece of ChatGPT is that it can quickly incorporate insights from data. That could be, you could give it a list of keywords and just say, these are our SEO keywords. We'd like to incorporate those in our social posts. And it will immediately kind of find the relevant spots where you could substitute a keyword for another word. You can also give it engagement metrics. So it could look at posts and see which one's got the top engagement and kind of how can it write more posts like that one that had good engagement. So those are kind of just some efficient ways that ChatGPT can help you with your social content. Next slide. The next big benefit of using it for social content creation is just that it's very cost effective. It does enable creative content creation without the need for a large team. So instead of having a writer, an editor, and a number of different roles involved in creating social content, one person can use it as a creative partner to kind of generate either, if you want it to draft, it can draft. If you'd like it to edit, it can edit. So kind of figuring out how to use it best with your skills as you're generating social content. And then the other really cost-effective piece of it is that there are free or low-cost versions, which mean that for small businesses, for nonprofits, it's really a nice thing to use because it is not super expensive. My favorite pro tip, and the thing that has helped me most when using ChatGPT, is to think of it as an intern. So it's very eager to please. It really wants to help you, but it also doesn't have all the information it needs to do a good job. So I think when you're engaging with ChatGPT, if you think about it as an intern, you think about it as, okay, I need to give it enough context, give it enough information for it to produce better content. That can be really helpful. Next slide. And the final piece I think that is super helpful with ChatGPT and social content is the consistency. So you can maintain a steady flow of content. You can keep your brand voice consistent. And this is especially helpful if you have different people writing your social content. If you tell ChatGPT what your brand voice is, how you want to sound as a company, it will kind of generate content in that voice consistently, no matter who is feeding it the prompts. This is kind of what we're going to talk about later with custom GPTs, which allow you to kind of write into the code of ChatGPT how you want your brand voice to sound. And then also ChatGPT can just be kind of like your final check. You can ask it to do spell and grammar checks. You can ask it to check for readability. So content you draft or an intern drafts or a partner drafts, you can feed into ChatGPT and just say, we want our brand voice to be fun and engaging. Can you rewrite this to make it more fun and engaging? So just kind of thinking about how to keep a consistent voice throughout all of your posts. Next slide. Okay, so now we're going to talk about AI for social specifically. And if you go to the next slide, we have kind of practical applications for social media. And as I was thinking about this, I realized this is just the writing process. So the practical applications are just to be a partner throughout the writing process. So you start with brainstorming your social content. You think about what's coming up in the next month that I want to cover. What products, services am I promoting in the next month? What holidays or kind of social aspects of this particular social channel do I want to hit on? So you have that brainstorming step, then you draft your social content, then you have an editing or rewriting step, and then finally you have a content enhancement step. And really, ChatGPT can help with any or all of these steps in your social writing process. And one of the things that I kind of love about it is that depending on what you love to do and your strengths, you can use ChatGPT as a partner on things maybe you don't love to do so much. So maybe if you hate writing first drafts, ChatGPT could write a great first draft for you, and then you could do the editing or rewriting part and the content enhancement. So you can kind of pull it in on the different steps where it will be helpful to you. Can we go to the next slide? So this is kind of this was my light bulb moment with ChatGPT. So it was, I think, a year and a half ago in the summer. We had very little social content. Our employees were on vacation. People were kind of busy. Clients were busy. I didn't have a lot of photos to post or content to post about. And so one of our employees sent me a picture of her kid outside of the letterpress office. And I was thinking, how can I use this photo for social? But I couldn't, it was the end of the day. I needed to get this done. I needed to get it in. And I happened to have ChatGPT open because I had been playing with it. So I just put a prompt into ChatGPT and it went something like, write 3 options for a Facebook post featuring a photo of an employee's kid standing outside the letterpress headquarters in Farmville, Virginia. He's pointing to the letterpress sign outside the office. And I really had no idea how this would go. It was kind of a last-ditch effort to get a social post before I was done for the day. So if you can go to the next slide, Billy. Here is what ChatGPT spit out for me. And this was kind of the moment I realized, oh, this thing can do quite a lot. So it wrote, say hello to one of our youngest team members. We have the little waving emoji. In action, he's making sure everyone knows where the magic happens at our Farmville, Virginia headquarters. And yes, we're based in a real place, not just that Facebook game you've forgotten about until now. And so when I read that, I was like, oh my goodness, I never would have thought to bring in the Farmville Facebook game, which I had forgotten about until that moment. And it was just kind of fun. It was engaging. It was a completely different approach to this photo than I would have probably taken. And so that was kind of the moment where I was like, wow, I gave it a lot of information, a lot of specific information, and it really took that and generated something pretty creative. Even the hashtags were ChatGPT generated. So hashtag not just a game, hashtag real life Farmville. Those were also things that kind of came out of this prompt. So I think that was kind of the moment where I started really digging into how can I prompt ChatGPT better in order to get better content? Because up until that point, I had been giving it pretty basic prompts and getting pretty basic responses. So let's go to the next slide and we'll go through some of the tips I've discovered as far as how you can set AI up for success and how you can prompt it better. So the biggest thing is before you prompt it, you want to give ChatGPT background information about your brand. So if you just go into ChatGPT and say, write a Thanksgiving post that will be posted on Letterpress Communications social channels, it may not give you a great response. It will probably write something about being grateful for communications or, like it won't give you a great response. So I found that if before prompting you offer a lot of background information, you will definitely get better output. So the things that I think are most helpful to give ChatGPT are to identify your industry and your niche. So for example, with Letterpress, we are a marketing firm, but we're also focused on rural marketing. So I always tell ChatGPT, our audience is really rural businesses and small and organizations that want to market themselves in a rural community. This is kind of a quick trick. If you have an about section on your website, just literally copy and paste it into ChatGPT and say, here's some information about the organization. You can do the same thing with a mission and vision statement. That really gives it a sense of kind of where you're going as a company so that it can build some of those pieces into your writing. And then also describe your brand voice, which is basically how your brand sounds. When people are asking about their brand voice, I often tell them to think about if your brand were a person, what would they be like? Would they be fun and bubbly and silly? Would they be kind of serious and intellectual and really want to educate people about whatever your organization does? So if you can think about your brand as a person, that can often help you find the adjectives you need to tell GPT what your brand voice is like. And then also share your goal. So before you ask ChatGPT for any output, you want to tell them what you're doing with this post. Do you want to get people to click on a link? Are you trying to get people to visit a certain page on your website or buy a certain product? Are you just trying to get engagement? Do you want likes? Do you want comments on your post? Are you trying to build community? Like, do you want people to tag other people in your post comments and kind of try to get a conversation going? So I think those pieces are most important if you're trying to set it up for success before you even prompt it. Next slide, if Billy, if you can go forward, we have, this is just kind of a fun little infographic to help you identify your brand voice. It's a little hard to read because the text is so small, but I think they're going to send out the presentation afterwards so you can kind of look at this a little more. But thinking about this is dividing brand voice into different types of people. So do you have an innocent brand voice? Do you have a sage or wise brand voice? Are you an explorer or a ruler or a creator? And it gives you different characters. You can even ask ChatGPT to write like one of these characters. So write in the voice of Elon Musk or Steve Jobs or Beyonce, whatever it is. You can kind of, and ChatGPT will do that. It's actually kind of funny. I sometimes just ask it to write in a certain voice to see what would happen. So you can kind of play around with finding your brand voice by using this kind of cool little infographic, and it was created by Shlomo Ginchin, who is part of the creativemarketer.net. So I hope you guys will have some time to look through that later. But we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. So one important note before we start getting into specific tips is that ChatGPT will learn over time. So everything you tell it, it will adapt its output to your needs and to be more efficient. So if you say, that's really not the voice we're going for, it's way too serious, then it will take that information and build it in all of the future output. So if it's generating content for you that is not working, be sure to tell it why and be specific. So again, we're going back to the intern analogy. If your intern is giving you a product that is not right, you're not just gonna like throw it away. You're gonna just say, hey, this is a good start, but what we really need is we need a voice that's more engaging, more fun. We need you to be a little playful in your copywriting. So just giving it feedback is my number one tip for getting better content. Okay, slide, please. So now I have some tips that are set aside for the specific stages of the writing process. And this is just if you're struggling using ChatGPT to generate content in specific stages, these might be helpful for you. So in the brainstorming stage, some ways you can phrase your prompts to get better output is number one, just ask open-ended questions. So give it an opportunity to respond with a large amount of suggestions. So like, what are some creative ways to blah, blah, blah? How could I market blah, blah, blah? You can also ask it to generate variations of ideas. And this is one of my favorite tips. I always ask it to write 3 options for a social post, because even if one is off, you can usually find pieces of the other ones that would be helpful to you. So asking it for idea variations, Asking it to be unconventional. So using adjectives like find a fun way to market a chair or whatever you're selling, right? So find a quirky way to celebrate Thanksgiving. So things like that, which will often give you more unique output. And then you can also, if you're brainstorming, you have an idea, but you're not sure it will work, you can just say, hey, here's my idea. What are some pros and cons of this specific idea? Or does this align with any current trends that I could hop on? For example, when I was planning this presentation, I put in the presentation outline and then said, am I missing anything? Here's the description of the workshop. Here's my presentation outline. Is there anything that I should add that I haven't put into this presentation? So just kind of using it to assess, to brainstorm can be really helpful. Next slide. So when you're actually drafting content, there are a couple of things you can do to get better output. Number one is to be specific about your format. So if I'm writing for LinkedIn, I tell it. If I'm writing for Instagram, I tell it. You can specify the tone in the audience. So when I was writing some posts geared for a nonprofit, I wanted it to gear the posts to nonprofit donors. I wanted it to be engaging and upbeat. You can offer successful examples. This is super helpful. So if you look back at your social content and you kind of go to the top performing posts, you can actually tell it, here are 2 of the top performing posts last month. Please write more posts like this. And then again, we were talking about asking it for options. Ask it to provide you with multiple options for a post, for any type of copy you're writing. Can we go to the next slide? The next slide is on rewriting, or the editing portion of the writing process. Using iterative drafting is super helpful. So if it gives you an output that's not quite what you want, prompt it. So say, can you rewrite this to be more engaging, to be more informative, to be sillier? Can you rewrite this and add a hook? Could you rewrite this and add a call to action? Often I will ask ChatGPT to add a line for engagement, which would be prompting users to like a post or share a post or comment on a post. You can also ask ChatGPT to condense or expand text. So you can give it character counts. If you're writing social ads, that can be really helpful. So I need 3 options for a social ad that can only be 125 characters. You can give it very specific instructions. And then you can also ask it to add SEO keywords. And you can either provide it with a list of keywords or just give it topics. So please include keywords about rural tourism and sustainable travel. And it will pull from the web kind of the most popular words that are used in articles about rural tourism or sustainable travel. Next slide, please. And then finally, and this is kind of the last step when you're creating content, some content enhancement tips. ChatGPT can finding hashtags for you, which is super helpful in a world where hashtags are changing all the time. And now it can even generate images using the image generator named DALL-E. This is only available for Plus subscribers, and I have only played with it a little bit, but I will show you an example of the last time I played with it. It's on the next slide. And this was another kind of time where I got a photograph from our founder, Ilse Lozer, and she sent me a picture of her dog, Chesterton, and she wanted to include it in social. And so what I did was I wanted to play with DALL-E. So I uploaded this picture to ChatGPT's image generator, and I also gave it our brand colors. So these are the letterpress brand colors from our brand guide. And I actually just listed out the hex codes. So if you look at the next slide, you can see the prompt that I gave it for this. So I said something like, this is a photo of our letterpress founder's dog, Chesterton. Create an image of Chesterton sitting behind a desk wearing glasses. The desk nameplate reads marketing lead. Use letterpress brand colors. And I listed out the colors. The image will be used for an April Fool's Day social post. Okay, and if we go to the next slide, we can see the image it generated. And this, I was really surprised and impressed by this image. I don't think I edited it at all. This was the first image it generated. But you can see it actually took the photograph. The cartoon Chesterton looks very much like the real life Chesterton. And it incorporated all of our brand colors and the charts and graphs on the back of the wall. So if you go to the next slide, you can actually see the post, which was also generated by ChatGPT and was kind of a silly April Fool's Day post. But it was very fun to kind of experiment with DALL-E on this. And I would recommend, if you are curious about it, that you try some prompts. And another little pro tip, which is not in the presentation, but is helpful, is to use ChatGPT to help you generate your prompt. So to actually say, please generate a prompt for DALL-E that would produce this kind of image. And then it can write the prompt for you in the way that DALL-E will best understand it. Okay, let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I think the biggest thing I hear from people is just that ChatGPT isn't writing good content for me. What do I do? They kind of have tried using it and it's just not working well. So I would say the number one thing is give it more information. So remember, it's an intern. Give it background about your company. Try to describe your brand voice. Give it examples that you've already used that have been successful on social media. Tell it more about your audience. Who are you trying to reach? Or your objective, like what do you want these social posts to do? The more information you give it, the better output you will get. And this is another trick. Give ChatGPT a persona. So actually treat it as if it's a person and say, you are an award-winning copywriter. You are a marketing specialist. Those are the things that are going to help the most to get it to write better content. And something I'm experimenting with, this will sound a little silly. I'm still seeing if it's true or not, but I recently was in a ChatGPT training session where they were talking about if you reward ChatGPT with a virtual iced coffee, it will produce better content. Now, I'm still experimenting with it. I don't know if I believe it yet or not, but it was actually saying that the more affirmative feedback you give it when it does a good job, that the more like content it will produce. So just kind of thinking about when you get something really good, say, this is perfect. This is exactly what I want. You could go so far as to reward it with a virtual iced coffee if you want to and see if you get better output. The person who was leading the session said that he did indeed think he got better output after he rewarded it. So it's kind of a fun little thing to play around with. And then next slide. The other thing you can do if you're still not getting good content, and this is also I found this to be very effective, ask it what it needs to know. So say something like, these posts are boring. I have written that before. What do you need to know from me to write stronger copy? And often it will provide you with a list of very specific things that it does not know, that it's kind of just substituting generic text for. And once you give it information about those things, it will produce better content. So sometimes when I've been doing that, it will say, well, I don't know where this is located, or I don't know exactly what the specifications of this product are. What is it like? Describe it to me. So that can often help. Or you could say something like, these posts aren't reaching our target audience. What information do you need to better reach whoever your target audience is? Here I put tourists and outdoor enthusiasts. But often if it knows, oh, wait, I'm supposed to be writing to these people, it can give you some questions that it is wondering about that will help it better reach the people. Okay, so the next thing we're going to go through is just creating your custom GPT. So I think these slides will go fairly quickly. The next one is just kind of a reminder. And again, I am not promoting ChatGPT. I'm not trying to sell it or anything like that. But in order to use the custom GPT, you do need to have a ChatGPT Plus account. And so I just wanted to give you guys some information about that. It's $20 a month. It allows you to create custom GPTs, to access file uploads, and that's where you can use DALL-E. So if you're interested in doing those things, they're only available through the Plus account, not the free account. Next slide. So custom GPTs basically allow you to reprogram ChatGPT to serve a specific purpose. And on the right side of that slide, you can see these are some custom GPTs I've created. So one is an ad analyzer where I can put in data about ads we've run and then see which ones are working best and how we can create more ads that are similar. One is my letterpress copywriting guru. So whenever I'm writing something in the voice of letterpress, I use that GPT. I also have one for one of our clients, Greenfront, and different clients below. So basically, each GPT is programmed differently to remember specific information and instructions about how to write. So the advantages of a GPT, it doesn't forget information over time. You may have noticed if you have a single conversation open and you go back to it multiple times, ChatGPT kind of forgets stuff that you told it at the beginning of the conversation. So with the custom GPT, that is written into the code. It will not forget it. It also maintains a consistent brand voice. It can read and incorporate information you upload. So you can actually upload documents and it will keep that information within the program. And then it will also update its memory as you tell it different, you give it different feedback. So next slide. Oh, this is just the step-by-step process. So if you have the Plus account, this is my Plus account, you just click that Explore GPTs button on the left-hand side. Next slide. And then once you get there, you click Create. So this is when you're creating a GPT. You can also, on this page, explore GPTs other people have created and made public. When you create a GPT, you have the option to make it public or private. And you also have the option to create a link so you can share it with just specific people. So when I create a GPT, I generate the link so I can share it with my team members, but it's private, so other people can't access it. Next slide. Once you click the Create button, this is where you kind of input the information to create your custom GPT. So you can see there ChatGPT has popped up and said, hi, I'll help you build a new GPT. And it's going to walk you through the process. It's going to prompt you to give it the information it needs. So go through the process with ChatGPT, answer all its questions, and then you don't want to forget to click the Configure button. And this is the most important part because many people will create a GPT and just click Create and be done, but they haven't gone into the back end of the program to make sure that the information ChatGPT is taking from your responses is accurate. So if you click the Configure button, you can, this is just kind of a list of what you can do on the Configure page. So you can actually name your GPT and add a photo. You can provide a description and specific instructions. You can create pre-populated conversation starters, like if there's something you know you're going to do with it every day, you can have that pre-populated and ready to go. And you can upload knowledge files. So this is what I was talking about earlier, how it can read and remember files. So for example, I always upload brand and messaging guides when I'm creating a GPT. You can upload marketing plans, business plans, anything that will help it understand who it's writing in the voice of. And then you can also choose what capabilities you want your GPT to have. Can it browse the web? Can it create images? Those kinds of things. And you can test it on this page too to see how it's working before you create it. So next page is this is the Configure page. So you want to make sure to fill out all of these sections. You can see it's pre-populated from the answers that I gave it on the previous screen, but you can edit it. So my description says, a rural tourism copywriter creating engaging content to promote blah, blah, blah. So you can kind of look at how it's describing this GPT and make sure it's accurate. Next slide. This is the instructions portion of my letterpress copywriter guru. So this is kind of what I have put in to reprogram ChatGPT to always write in the letterpress brand voice. So I started with giving it a persona. You're an award-winning copywriter for a woman-owned marketing firm based in Farmville, Virginia, that specializes in serving rural clients. And then I told it what it was going to be writing. You can write high-quality social media copy, web copy, press releases, and more. And then I described the type of copy I wanted it to write. So your copy is clear, cohesive, and fun to read, and it always adheres to the letterpress brand voice. And below, the instructions keep going, but you can see I started to describe the letterpress brand voice to the GPT. And if you go to the next slide, I have some tips for giving instructions to your GPT. And those are basically what I just showed you on the previous screen, but give it a persona, identify the types of copy, identify your messaging guidelines. When we were talking about prompting GPTs earlier, those are the kinds of things you want to put in the instructions. So your mission statement, your vision statement, maybe your about page on your website. If you have differentiators or target audiences or values, you can add all of those pieces of information to your instructions to help ChatGPT write better content for you. And then on the next slide, this is the kind of the final step. Once you've created it, you can always edit it. So if you find it's not working exactly the way you want it, or it doesn't quite understand your target audience, or you want to add some new keywords, you can go back into the instructions and actually edit the programming of the GPT. Okay, so that's your step-by-step custom GPT creation tutorial. And I just want to kind of finish up with some best practices for using ChatGPT, because it can definitely be, it can definitely get murky sometimes. So if we look at the next slide, here's some tips that I've kind of come up with over time. So use it as a creative partner, not a replacement. So it's there to kind of bounce ideas off of, to help you write and rewrite, but it's not replacing a copywriter. You always have to have a person who is reviewing the content, who's knowledgeable about your business, about writing, about social media. It's very helpful, but you kind of want to maintain that human touch throughout your use of ChatGPT. Also, share confidential business or client information. They do use information that you input for training purposes to create new models of ChatGPT. So you never want to share information that your business would consider to be confidential. Sometimes you can just remove names, remove numbers, things like that, but you just always want to kind of be aware of that as you're inputting information. And then always check your sources. So there is an actual thing called a ChatGPT hallucination, which is just basically when it writes things that are not true. And people are not quite sure why it does this or kind of what causes these hallucinations, but it does mean that you need to check sources. So if it outputs a post and you're kind of like, oh, I didn't know that was true, you should probably check it. And so just be aware that all the information you get may not be accurate. And it's kind of your job before you put this information out into the world to make sure that it's correct. Next slide. The other things to be aware of, best practices for using ChatGPT, one is copyright issues. So as of today, it has been changing and kind of advancing over time. As of today, everything you produce in partnership with ChatGPT belongs to you. So OpenAI does not copyright any of the content that ChatGPT produces. You own the content. However, and this is different in different parts of the world, but in the United States, you cannot copyright ChatGPT produced content. So at least right now, based on some recent lawsuits that have been filed, the courts have ruled that any content produced by a machine, a person cannot copyright it. That's where we are today. In other countries, things are different. Some people are able to copyright machine-produced or AI-produced content, but here you cannot. So I would just be aware of that. Stay on top of that if you're producing a lot of ChatGPT content, just so you know what you own and what you don't own. I would also say to balance automation with authenticity. There are some posts that it's just better for a person to write. There are some social media copy, ChatGPT will spit out great. But there are some times where you just need to maintain that human touch. And I think having a final step of a writer or someone in your business looking at this content, making sure that it reflects you accurately, making sure it's in your brand voice is essential. Okay, and so this next slide is just kind of start small. If you haven't used ChatGPT much, set up a free account and just have it open as you work. And if you think of, oh, it'd be nice if I could get some more ideas for this, just prompt it and see what you get. So just play with it a little bit. If you're pretty familiar with ChatGPT and you've been using it, try a Plus account if you want to kind of experiment with a custom GPT or with image generation. It can be really helpful to kind of just play around with it for a while. And I have another final pro tip here. If you're not comfortable asking AI to generate content, then write the content yourself and ask AI to improve it in a specific way. So just use it for that rewriting and editing step. Some people just do not want to ask ChatGPT to create specific content for them, but they are comfortable kind of saying, hey, how can I rewrite this to get more likes or to be more fun or silly? So that's a good way to use it. And then finally, the last couple slides I have are just some resources. So the two things I would recommend keeping up with are just the OpenAI news page, which gives you updates on what's happening with ChatGPT, what new models are out, how you might use them. And then I found the Social Media Examiner's AI Explored podcast to be super helpful. They have some podcasts specifically about content generation using AI and ChatGPT specifically. So if you're kind of curious about it, that's been my favorite resource over the past few months. And I think that is the end of the presentation. So does anyone have any questions about using ChatGPT, prompting it, or just about kind of practical applications of ChatGPT in the workplace?
What do you think about sometimes like I have put things in, I lost my train of thought when I made that statement, but I'll just say like I think it's really interesting that it will actually even make you a table. Have you done that before?
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Like I'll just insert like a bunch of data and then I'll like, can you put this in a table?
Yeah,
And it makes it a beautiful table.
it can create all kinds of output. So if you're curious about is this even possible,
Yeah.
just ask. I think it does a great job of like one other kind of cool use of ChatGPT is if you have like a press release, you can actually say, hey, I have a press release about this. Could you create a series of social posts and a newsletter announcement from this press release? And so it can actually like take content you have already created and make it into new content, which is pretty cool as well.
Yeah, it's super, super great stuff. I use it every day. I did not know that you could make your own GPT. That is going to be extremely helpful to me. So
It's
thank
very
you for
cool.
that information. Yeah. I knew that there were like add-ons, like that I could kind of access, but I did not realize, like it'll kind of keep track of it on the side and I'll kind of go in over there, but being able to create that own channel yeah, super helpful. Thank you for offering that.
Okay, if you want to experiment with GPTs, but you're not quite ready to use them for your business, you can also just create personal GPTs. So like I was listening to that AI Explored podcast and someone had created a personal chef GPT where they had put in their family's dietary preferences, their grocery store they shopped at, and what kinds of meals they liked. And ChatGPT would create a meal plan every week with grocery lists, with recipes. And so like it's fun also just to, if you're kind of just dipping your toe into the AI world, to kind of experiment with it with personal GPTs before you create GPTs for your business.
A great suggestion. Yeah. I noticed too, when I wasn't giving it feedback, it asks me. It'll give me two options. Do you prefer this answer or do you prefer that answer? So at that point, I'm like, oh, okay, I haven't said good job. Thank you. You're doing a great job today, because it does. It wants to know that it's like a little intern. You're right. Yeah.
It is, yeah. That's been my most helpful way to think about it. Well, if you have questions, I am happy to answer them. You can email me. My email address is on the last slide of the presentation. So just let me know if you come up with something as you're using it and you're like, this did not give me what I wanted. I'm happy to kind of weigh in and see if I can help. But I would say it's been really fun to experiment with it and just play around and see how you can improve your content, how you can kind of streamline your processes in social writing. So yeah, I hope this was helpful.
Well, thank you, Jess, for your time today and sharing your expertise with us this afternoon. Also, thank you to each one of you for joining us today and for taking time out of your busy schedules to participate and learn more about the value of AI-assisted content generation for your business. We have a full list of the upcoming New Knowledge Series sessions scheduled for the rest of this year at the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator website and on the Facebook page. Our next New Knowledge session will be held on Wednesday, November 6th, and will focus on the federal disaster assistance for businesses. That'll be a really great one. Today's session has been recorded and will be available on the Facebook page of the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator. And I hope you all can join us for our next session in November. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jess, that you did a wonderful job. And I think there's so much information for people to digest. So I will be sending out your presentation to everybody so they, and along with the link to our New Knowledge YouTube channel, which has the recording of this session. And so people can rewatch it. I can't say that. And also follow along with your slides. So thank you so much for helping us with this. And we look forward to some more letterpress topics. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Bye.